Thank you and welcome to Newsline Live. Just where is Sri Lanka going? And what is Sri Lanka doing? What does Sri Lanka need to be doing? What is the most important matter on the hands of the government of Sri Lanka today? The answer, I think, and perhaps you may agree with me, is the need to control the pandemic. But there are associated problems with that. And to discuss one very important aspect, the plight of our migrant workers stuck in various parts of the world, having earned hard-earned dollars and sent it dutifully back to Sri Lanka and helped our economy no end. We've got that subject to discuss with none other than Member of Parliament, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. Very good evening to you.
Good evening, Faraz.
And this was the subject of your protest today, this morning.
Yes.
It's easy for me to ask you why you're causing so much of trouble, because we have a 71-year-old president who's trying his best, and we've got a slightly older prime minister also trying his best, and everyone's trying their best, as you are. But really, should you be protesting and causing all this mayhem?
Well, I would really like not to.
Right.
When I was nominated to the Parliament 6 months ago, perhaps 6 months ago, yes, I thought I would get about a year or at least maybe even 2 years to sit back and actually learn about politics, learn about how the Parliament works, that it will be quite a, this was a government that came in with a 2/3 majority, a president who was, came in with all these expectations, I thought.
Gilded prospects.
Gilded prospects. I thought as a fresher, new person in Parliament, I can spend the first year for sure, maybe even 2 years, easing myself into this new job and that I wouldn't have to do much.
Right. But the
reality has been far from that. We've been inundated with issues. We are not raising these issues because we just want to make trouble. We get calls, we get letters, we get from parents, from children of migrant workers on a daily basis. We're being inundated with people begging us to do something. Okay? And it's not just on this issue. I mean, this is just one of the issues on which we get calls daily by people. So then it is our obligation, our duty and our responsibility to raise these issues.
Right.
And protest is not our first option.
Right.
We write, we raise it in Parliament, we discuss, we ask questions. When there is no response, then we resort to protest.
With the 20th Amendment under one's belt, with a 2/3 majority under one's belt, will they listen to such protests?
Well, if they don't, I find that I really hope they will, because these are the people who voted for them. These people who are calling us certainly didn't vote for us.
Right.
Right? These are the Rataviruos who came back, spent their money and bought tickets and came here to vote for this government. They didn't vote for us.
Isn't it too much to believe that this government is consciously not doing anything about it? Isn't it a fact that they're doing all they can?
No, I don't think so. I don't think they're doing all they can. I think they can do much more. The government has admitted that they can do much more. No one less than Minister Namal Rajapaksa has said that they could be doing more on this particular issue. So
I'm tempted to say that he's the Minister of Sport and leave it at that. But, one mustn't talk out of turn. But there are people who are supposedly put into these places because they know what they can do. And the army, the forces have been brought in here, wheeled in, because they know a thing or two about logistics and so on and so forth.
No, they know,
So how many, in the UAE and in the Middle Eastern region, there are approximately, at one stage, some months ago, there was 42,000 people waiting to come back, registered and waiting to come back. Now, if you took 40,000 and at 200 people per flight, you did awful lot of flights operating up and down to bring them back. And with those challenges, because each aircraft, that crew will have to be quarantined, and then you start over again. And so there comes a point when, you just don't, you run out of people. But how many people, your point is that it's not being enough, but how many free government-run quarantine beds are there?
Well, we don't know. That's one of the problems.
We don't know after 1 year?
We don't know the real data. The accurate data is simply not available. This is one of the problems. For instance, we don't know how many beds are available free. We don't know of those who are registered to come back, how many can afford to pay for quarantine and take some of the pressure off, how many actually need support. We don't know of those who have come back, how many have paid, how many came free. We don't know. We simply don't have these figures. This data is not available. The disaggregated data is not available. We don't know how many women, how many are migrant workers, how many are students, how many went on holidays and got stuck, how many went for medical treatment and got stuck. We don't have this data. So it's really difficult also then to plan or to organize logistics when you don't have proper data.
Right.
Right? And
but someone somewhere has that data.
Someone somewhere has to have that data, and that data has to be made available. Now, the people that we are talking to on a daily basis, not just me, my colleagues, or our entire party structure, these are people who are desperate. There's a woman who talked to me today whose daughter has been in one of the Middle Eastern countries in hospital for a year, right? And she was put into hospital somewhere in February, and she lost her job because she fell ill. She's overstayed her visa because she lost her job, and she's been asking to be repatriated, and nothing has happened for a year. Now, this is this old woman now who's talking to me, who's looking after her two young girls, two young children. This poor old lady can barely look after herself, right? So surely we have to prioritize these people. We have to have some plan to look after the most vulnerable of our migrant workers.
So what about the insurance premium that is deducted by the Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment?
So
what about that?
So this is what we also want to know. What is being done with the insurance that is being done? What is the responsibility of the agents who took these people across, right? What is the responsibility of the Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment, which is why we held the protest outside the Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment today. When we went in to meet the chairman was not there. We met with some other officials who then told us
was the chairman shying away, or was he
let's give him the benefit of the doubt. And
but you gave him plenty of notice.
Oh, we did. Yes, right. Well, we was first kept outside for a good 10, 15 minutes.
Do you think Mervyn Silva will come and tie him to a tree?
Well, I'm not Mervyn Silva,
no,
so I can't do that.
So you're not going to tie him to a tree?
I'm not going to tie anyone to a tree.
He's safe.
So he's safe, but let's give him the benefit. And I actually had sympathy for those officials because we could sense that their hands were tied also, right? In the sense that they are saying that they are not responsible for the repatriation process. The repatriation process of the migrant workers, their input is minimal. It's the COVID task force and the foreign ministry which is handling it.
Yes, but they can do the logistics, but the money, the do-re-mi, needs to come from the Foreign Employment Bureau.
Absolutely, I agree. And also, it's the Foreign Employment Bureau which has the data, which has the connections with the with the families, which has the connections with the agents, with the employers. All of that information is with the Foreign Employment Bureau. So if they are not involved in this repatriation process, the COVID task force and the foreign employment, the foreign ministry is working in the dark.
Do you think that election gurus like Basil Rajapaksa and the counterparts that there are have missed the point here? Because if you bring all these people back pretty pronto and fulfill their needs, their aspirations, and put to bed their fear of contracting this disease in a foreign land, do you think they've all missed the boat? Because if you bring them all back, you'll be guaranteed the next round of votes. And with the provincial council being threatening to have elections, then they'll be home and dry. So why aren't they doing that?
Yeah,
There's a grave political potential there.
Yeah, one would think so. But I think there's another point to be made here, and that is that this whole repatriation process is also very profitable for certain interested parties.
Right.
The flight, the quarantine process, the transport, the PCR tests, all of this is also outsourced to private companies, right?
Right.
And clearly there's a lot of money to be made through this as well. So maybe that is taking priority over even elections. Who knows? I mean, we want these questions answered. These are speculations, right? This is suspicions we have, right? Because we don't see any reason why the government should not be prioritizing these people, because this is a vulnerable community. This is a community this is a group of people whose incomes, whose salaries have sustained this country for years.
Absolutely.
Right?
And,
So
and
we
still
have a
doing that now.
They're still doing it. They're still doing it. So we have a huge responsibility towards them.
But we also have, we owe them a
Yes.
duty of gratitude.
Yes, absolutely.
And they get nothing special.
No.
I mean, they don't even have their own line at immigration or at customs.
none whatsoever.
And they're hassled for their passports, for duty-free, and so on. Thank you very much for your questions. 0772 300 305. By SMS only, please. And this message just received is a case in point. The Foreign Employment Bureau is the biggest white elephant. They do nothing. It is a place for people to be given jobs at the expense of the poor migrant workers. And it goes on. This should be scrapped. Agree? Disagree?
No, I don't agree. I can understand this person's frustration.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be reorganized. I think they need to be made responsible and accountable, because I think the migrant workers need some kind of institution to facilitate their work. I agree that it's not happening as it should, but the answer is perhaps not to do away with the institution, but to restructure and reform these places. I think this is the problem. We can't sort of let this is what happens when we let institutions die, when we don't let officials do their jobs, when they're not supported to do their jobs. This is what happens. This crisis has revealed starkly how weak our institutions are, right? This is not, COVID is not the problem. The problem is years of weakening and destroying institutions and systems in this country.
Is there
and we are paying the price.
Is there an
not we, people
Is there
are
an
paying the price.
all-party committee to help the government?
No, we actually proposed this right at the beginning, said why doesn't the government call a all-party sort of coordination body, task force, call it whatever you will.
So in the absence of that,
Yes.
have you made an attempt to talk to, number one, Mr. NGR, the president?
Well, I haven't personally, but we have been making
I'm almost tempted to say, why not? 20th Amendment and all that.
20th Amendment, and there's
Two-thirds
protocol,
majority.
there are ministers. We brought this up with the Prime Minister, we brought it up with the relevant ministers, right? We've talked about it in the press, so certainly the President can't be unaware of it, right?
But the president does have many things on his hand. So if you were to press the right button and go and see him.
We can't, this is the other thing, this is the problem with the 20th Amendment also. If everything lies with one man, things are going to go
Yes, we
pear-shaped very fast.
We can't change that now.
Well,
it's done.
he still has he still has the power to make arrangements to do things in a way that allows other people also to work, because he should know by now that he can't do everything. It's humanly impossible. He can't possibly have the knowledge to do everything. This requires specific technical knowledge. No human being could possibly have that capacity. That's why you need a team of people. That's why you need people with the right knowledge and the skills who can intervene and do what you said. The vision, the leadership is not to go around, checking whether there's, the minor details. The leader is there to give a vision and to back what your people do and to support that.
On that note, Harini Amarasuri, let's go for a short break. This is Newsline Live. We'll be back after this short message about the headlines for the primetime news.
News First, Newsline with Faraz, Shauketaly. News First, Newsline with Faraz, Shauketaly.
And welcome back to Newsline Live. I'm in conversation with Member of Parliament, Harini Amarasuri. A very good evening again to you. Now then, what can be done? Now, you've had your protest.
Yes.
You haven't called the president yet.
Yes.
And maybe more than 30,000 or
Yeah,
more
yeah.
are still stuck.
Yeah.
And they're trickling in. Sometimes they've stopped.
Yeah.
As and when the medical demands come in the way,
Yeah.
then everyone has to listen to that.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do about it? Are you going to at least visit the army commander who's in charge of that committee?
Well, we are considering other options. We've submitted a letter in which we've made several proposals as to what can be done. We're not just protesting, we are also giving suggestions as to what can be done. And we have to give them enough time to respond, right? We'll give them a few days to respond, and then we will talk further with the task force and also with the foreign ministry, with the minister. We will continue to raise this in Parliament, and they won't be able to shut us up till something is done for these people. I mean, we can't stop. We can't stop simply because we are being inundated by requests for us to speak out on these, on behalf of these people. So whether we like it or not, we will just simply have to go on and hope that the government will act and that the government will take action. I mean, they have to. These are citizens of this country.
And there's a great potential for votes if you sort it out right.
Yeah. And I mean, this is the other thing for us. We are the only country that has not done this. Bangladesh has got their people back. India managed to get people back. Pakistan managed to get people back. Why can't we? We should be ashamed of ourselves. We should be really ashamed of ourselves.
Venture an answer?
Yeah.
Just to keep it going. They have more resources than us. They have far more workers abroad than we do.
Perhaps. So then doesn't it make it easier for us? We have fewer
No, but
to
they
deal
have
with?
more money because they have more people sending more money.
No, I think it's also, I don't think it's just a question of resources. I think it is a question of priorities and question of commitment.
How can they make money out of this? You said that some people are making money.
Yeah, well, why should a PCR cost 23,000? Why should people be charged?
It's 23,000. I have information from a doctor actually who was attached to the National Hospital, and that invoice was for approximately 6,000 plus 2,000 for handling charges and 400 rupees for transport. Grand total was about 9,000.
Well, I've seen an invoice for 23,000 that
Really?
was sent to me by someone who had to pay that. I have also
Well, that's a
I have
rip-off.
also yes, I've also heard of people.
9,000 is bad enough.
I've also heard of people who've spent as much as 500,000 for this entire process.
Well, yes, that's that apparently that's the going
yeah,
rate.
500 to
Because it's
600,000.
12,000 rupees a day times
Yeah.
14
Yeah.
plus your airfares.
So how many migrant workers do you know who can afford that?
Perhaps only the top 1%. But again, the army commander has been on our programs and he's assured us and told us on air that this is an option. The paying part is an option.
Yes, this is what we are told as well. But if there are, then there have to be more flights organized for those who, this is why we need the numbers for us, right? So there are 12,500 odd people who come back in December.
Do you think we could make a right to information application?
Perhaps, yeah, right? Because
Do
we
you think
need
that's
to know,
a bit too classified?
I don't see why it should be classified. It's not national security.
Well, the
it's not
point
a
is
threat.
this. Under the last government, Transparency International wanted to see, under the right to information, the then Prime Minister's asset declaration.
Yeah,
They didn't get it. They're in court.
okay.
So,
No, but this I think should be publicly available. This information should be publicly available because we want to know how many flights has the government organized to bring back those who cannot afford the 5 to 600,000 necessary, right?
but
Of
that
the
600,000
yeah,
is including accommodation.
is including
It
accommodation.
shouldn't be all that much for the flights only.
It shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So that's why we need to know. That's why we need to know how many had to pay for the entire package, how many were charged only for the
But
flights.
that's historical data. Going forward, how
Yeah.
can we sort this out?
Going forward, one of the things that we need to do is we also need to change our rules a little bit. I think we will, because of the numbers involved, we shouldn't insist that everybody has 14 days of quarantine, for example, right? We will need to move that faster.
Yeah.
So since people are being required to take a PCR test before boarding a flight,
Yeah.
and they're required to take a PCR test on arrival, we can minimize the number of days a person has to stay in quarantine. If someone tests negative, they shouldn't have to be quarantined for 14 days. They can be asked to quarantine themselves at home under the supervision of the public health workers, the public health inspectors. All of these networks can be mobilized to do this. If necessary, we can increase the number of public health or do whatever is necessary, right? So home quarantine, I think, is the way to go. In most parts of the world actually now, unless you have severe symptoms, you are not even taken to hospital. You are expected to stay at home.
Right.
Right? Yes, there might be situations in our country where due to the living conditions, quarantining at home might be difficult. But those could be the exceptions then, right? And then it's all, I mean, this is not a problem that came up just last month, no. This started in March, right? So there's plenty of time to get our act together. We should have got our act together by now.
Right.
That's the point. And also, we cannot say that we don't have resources. The SLBFE, as someone just pointed out, has the money.
Right. Is this all to do with politics then?
I would say it is to do with a lack of empathy, a lack of sensitivity to the most vulnerable in our society. I think this government, I hate to say this, but what this government has demonstrated over and over again is simply a real lack of feeling, of sensitivity to actual human issues.
That's a serious claim, given that the public have voted almost 2/3 for them.
Yeah.
And on the other side, the president got quite a sizable
I mean,
majority.
whether it's the policy regarding funerals, burial or cremation of people who die, whether it's repatriation of our workers, it's even the whole approach, the language that is being used for COVID management, treating people as suspects. Even asymptomatic people are being referred to as patients. We talk of them escaping as if they are criminals. We talk of capturing them.
Somebody said they felt that they were being treated like lepers.
Yes, these people have not gotten illness because they, they chose to fall ill. This is a pandemic. This is a human problem.
Last final question.
Yes,
Quick answer.
yes.
Would a female president and prime minister have sorted it all out better?
I think so.
On that note, it's time now for the primetime news from News First. Take care, have a great evening, and Harini Amrasuri, thank you very much. And as always, God bless you.